Good evening. Today is Thursday, January 29th, 2026. I'd like to call this meeting of the Auburn City Council to order. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Calarco is excused this evening. Councilor Diego?
Here.
Councilor Overstreet Wilson?
Here.
Councilor Cuddy?
Here.
Mayor Genatino.
Here, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer or reflection. Thank you. Please be seated. Public announcements.
Thank you, Mayor. The only announcement that I have this evening is that the regularly scheduled planning board meeting for the month of February is not happening. It's canceled due to no business to go before the board.
Very good. Public to be heard?
At this point in time, we will open the public be heard portion of the council meeting. Residents are asked to state their name and address for the record. Please keep remarks to 3 minutes or less, and please observe commonly accepted rules of courtesy and decorum.
Is there anybody wishing to be heard this evening?
I'm here.
It's all yours.
I am here today. My name is James Udall. I'm at 106 Osborne Street. I'm here again to advocate for the expansion of the over 65 and disabled homeowner tax assessment discount. The scope should be expanded to the state maximum income guidelines. The maximum income guidelines are in the mid 50,000 range, about 55,000. I read something earlier this week from Jenny, maybe it's up to $58,000. Currently, only a homeowner making under $37,009 can, disabled homeowner or over 65 homeowner can get this. I don't know about you guys, but making under 55,000 in this economy is a drag. Affordability is a big issue. I come to this from a point of some privilege. When I was in my career before I was disabled, I was a high income earner, but I get the most disability that anybody can make, and still I can't make ends meet on what I earn. But I'm coming to this from privilege because during my working career I was able to save money and invest, but every month the pool of savings gets lower and lower and lower, and I'm telling you that as insignificant as it may be, $100 saved on a month on county and city tax, it's the difference of maybe whether I have to go into my savings to take my wife out to dinner and a movie or something that month. I don't make a lot of money, and I'm talking to people all over the city on social media and by telephone that aren't even aware of this program. I talked to an 81-year-old homeowner named Tom yesterday. He applied for the program. He says he's been a lifelong resident, 81 years old, and never knew about this program even existing. And there's not enough education to get the word out. My idea would be if last week I think I heard that you guys have to pay $5,000 in postage to send out the county tax bills. Well, if you're doing that, why not just put an information flyer in that tax bill, letting every taxpayer in the county know that, or in the city, that this program exists. I'm not casting aspersions at anybody on the council, but I don't think you guys are aware of what it is to live on under $55,000 a year, and it's very difficult. It's an affordability issue, and you guys have the opportunity where the rubber meets the road. Your political rhetoric, I'm sure, on the street is affordability and the tariffs are bad and the cost of living is out of control and the cost of rent. This is how Mondami got elected. But this is, in practical terms, where the rubber meets the road.
Your time's up, sir.
You guys can do something about
Maybe
affordability.
you didn't hear me. Your time's up. Thank you. Please be seated. Is anybody else wishing to be heard this evening? Yes, sir.
John Petrosino, live at 15 Perry Street, and I agree. I think it should be the $58,000. I am disabled. My tax assessment went up $106,000. My county and city tax up $851. That's something I would not be able to afford. So it'll be either help out, or I'm going to be forced to move out of my house and do something different. But there are programs that could be helping, and I think a majority of the people in the city need the help, and I don't know why it's not being done. I wish I had more information on how to apply for this stuff too, because I have no clue to this until recently that this program existed. So if there's any program that information you give me for this program, I would greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Petrosino. Mr. Steigerwald?
Dave Steigerwald, 452 North Seward Ave. Just a quick comment on the latest assessments. My assessment went up, so my house is worth a lot more money.
Can you hold on 1 second? Excuse me. He's speaking right now. Go ahead, Mr. Steigerwald.
Well, anyway, so it's kind of a double-edged sword. It's I look at it like it's a Trojan horse. You know, right now it looks good. You know, the rates stay down, my tax amount won't go up, but it leaves a lot of room, because now I went up 91,000 above, in addition to what I already pay, or what my assessment is, and I don't disagree with that. In fact, I'd want more than what my assessment is. But this is what inflation looks like. We went from 1.2 billion to what did I wrote? I wrote that. I made a little note to myself here. Yeah, 1.65 billion assessed values in the city to 1 billion, almost 2 billion. So when you tack on a little bit of an increase on that, maybe people won't beef, but it'll amount to a lot more money. Anyway, I'll leave with this: beware of Greeks bearing gifts. Okay, that's a Trojan horse. I'll leave it like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Steigerwald. Is there anyone else wishing to be heard this evening? Close the public to be heard. Move on to the approval of the meeting minutes from January 15th, 2026. We have a sponsor, Councilor Cuddy, second by Councilor Overstreet Wilson. Any questions, discussion, or changes? Please call the roll.
Councilor Diego?
Yes.
Councilor Overstreet Wilson?
Yes.
Councilor Cuddy?
Yes.
Mayor Genatino?
Aye.
Carried.
City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to draw everyone's attention to bid opportunities on the city's website. The Lake Ave Bridge rehabilitation, which will be presented later in the meeting, that bid is still open. I wanted to say a big thank you to our employees who worked around the clock over the weekend in very difficult weather conditions to provide our services. Everybody did a fantastic job, and we're grateful. Also, thank you to the public for your patience as we continue to work to clear snow. Please continue to drive to road conditions and give yourselves extra time to reach your destinations. Thank you.
Any questions for Ms. Haynes? Reports from members of council? Go ahead, Mr. Councilor Diego.
Yeah, just same as city manager said, appreciate DPW doing all the plowing. Got quite a bit of snow. Those guys were out day and night. Water department turns around and goes out in the middle of the night. You know, it was below zero, fixes the water main break. Of course, the wastewater treatment plant guys have been killing themselves down there trying to rein in this Cuba milk problem. So we appreciate it. Everybody appreciates it.
Very good, thank you. I just want to mention that earlier this week I attended Blueprint 2 class at Auburn Junior High School. So it's a leadership program in the school district. I want to acknowledge Mr. Albarisi and Mr. Bola for their leadership of that group. That group of students typically comes to the public with a significant number of really good ideas. Some of them have come to fruition here in the city. So I just wanted to mention that that program's still alive and well. All right. First presentation this evening is the Lake Ave Bridge presentation. Mr. Jeff Rena from CNS Companies. Welcome. Scott, Mr. McIntyre, you as well. Thank you.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Thank you for having us here tonight. Jeff Rena, our design engineer from CNS Companies. He's going to be doing the presentation. He's also brought some of his team here, Jessica and Jim. So we'll be all available for questions after the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Always great to be back in front of you folks. Long-awaited Lake Ave Bridge project. You're going to see some of the slides here kind of familiar from when I was here about a year ago or so. And I know the big question and the conversation is going to be surrounding the funding, for the project. So we'll get into that. But as I move forward through the slides, we'll walk through, again, some history, how we got here, why this project's important, and then we'll get into some of the nuts and bolts. Certainly after the presentation, open for questions, but if there's something that sparks you in the middle of something, we can take some questions. It's no problem. So let's get started here. Let's see. And I need a map. Let's see. Scott, I thought we figured this out. Guess I'm going to have to use that. So here we are, Lake Ave Bridge project. It's a locally administered federal aid project. This is from the Bridge New York program that started back in, or under the 2021 program from New York State. This is a bridge rehabilitation. It's not a bridge replacement. This project is eligible for reimbursement. Again, it's federal aid. It's part of the Bridge New York program. And as part of that program, there is a local share. We're going to get into that, so there will be supplemental local funding that's required for the project. A little bit of history. This bridge was built in 1954, and this is history's hometown. And this particular construction engineer, David Steinman, is renowned for bridges across the country, and I have some listed here that are some pretty big bridges that he has designed and helped build. And what makes this bridge a little bit unique is this is probably one of the more simplest of bridges that he's designed, although a very unique bridge, other than like what we've had in other areas of the city. But I mean, when you're talking about large suspension bridges and, again, Thousand Islands Bridge, U.S. to Canada, and then you take a look at our bridge here, very different, but still very important to the citizens here of Auburn. So kind of unique. Moving on, so this bridge was, our last major rehabilitation was in 2002, but the first one was back in 1985, where they did a whole deck replacement, took the whole top off, put a new one back on, and then 2002, most of it was focused on bridge joints. You can see that, bearings, it was below the deck during that time. But this is a really important bridge. It serves 9,000 vehicles a day, and it's a huge source. If we move into, this bridge ever got permanently closed, the detour around there is quite large, and we're going to show you some of the detours because we are going to temporarily close the bridge during the construction. So very important bridge for not only everyday travel, but schools, the school district, which we're going to get into a little bit too. So why did we need to do work on this bridge? Well, it was deteriorating, and it's still deteriorating every single day. The project objective is to extend the service life for 25 years, and we also want to reduce the life cycle maintenance costs. Certain parts of the bridge, the way it was constructed, long ago, have open joints which cause leakage, and you could see the picture down below here that is a bearing at one of the abutments under the joints that is just completely rusted out, which causes all sorts of problems with bridge movement or lack of movement because the bearings could freeze, and just deterioration of the steel. So this is just one visual of how bad it is on other sections of the bridge. You can see some more of the deterioration that's going on. Again, so these are pictures from 2022 when we were out there, so it's only gotten a little bit worse. So we want to repair the steel girders and the sidewalks. The sidewalks that are there now do not meet standards for impact, the railing. So if a vehicle were to hit that railing, it could be catastrophic. So the sidewalks, the railing, the steel, a lot of repair work needs to get done, for this project. So how are we going to do it? Well, we've gone through lots of different scenarios over the course of the design. We had a public meeting right here in February where we kind of went through a lot of the alternatives, and what was decided for the best for the project, and also for timing, it was to close the bridge and provide the detour. And the detour is pretty significant, although not too bad, but it's enough that it'll cause a little bit of delay for folks. But this was the best option that was kind of determined altogether. And one of the key things here is we close the bridge. How does that impact the school district? How does that impact the emergency services? And we've had conversations with both. And I want to just actually take this time to thank the superintendent and the school transportation office for them being very, very accommodating through this process and willing to reroute and do all of the things necessary in order to make this project work. So right now our plan is to close the bridge on June 29th, and in the contract we are saying that the bridge must be open no later than September 3rd, so that way the school district is only impacted during the one school year and not into the next one. So where are we now? So we are well beyond the design. As Ms. Haynes said, we are out to bid right now. We had a pre-bid meeting on the 13th, so it was just a couple weeks ago. And I'll have to say there's many times where we have the pre-bid meetings and they're pretty uneventful, and people come, they listen, and then they walk out the door. This one was probably, in my experience, the best pre-bid meeting that we had, because we received such valuable feedback from the contractors that will allow us, and our hope being that will get us better prices in the end. We released Addendum 3, that was just a couple days ago, to provide the contractors with more flexibility. They told us some information on what they thought needed to be done in order to get this project and be successful. We took that back, we looked at those things, we made some adjustments, and that's where we're at right now. So we did have to move the bid opening, which was scheduled for the 27th. We gave them another couple weeks so that way they can go back and hopefully sharpen their pencils. And in our mind, giving them that flexibility, we hope is going to translate into much better costs for the city. So the funding timeline. We got to go all the way back to 2021 when we started with the Bridge New York application. That's when we were hired. CNS was hired to help the city with the application, and what that is going through lots of old available information that's at the time. They're biennial inspection reports, which aren't very detailed, and we come up with a recommendation of what can be done. Bridge New York, for those applications, they're capped at about $5 million, and at the time, based off of the information we had, we felt that we put in for the application to be just about $5 million. It was 4.9, and so in December, the city got awarded the 4.9, and then we kind of started work, early spring of 22. You can see there. So as we got into the preliminary design, and what that means is we physically go out to the bridge, 100% hands-on inspection. We're getting up into every steel structure, girder, stringer, sounding concrete, every little nook and cranny that's in there, and we're putting eyes to it, and we're measuring, and we're detailing. And what we found out at that moment was this bridge is in a lot worse condition than what was presented in the biennial inspection reports that we did our application on. So that was the first time we took a stab at, okay, there's more going on here, and we had notified the city that, you know, we went from 4.9 to now $9 million. That was the October 23 timeframe. And that was a huge jump. And I came here and we talked about it, I presented. And, you know, during that time, obviously it's a huge funding gap, you know, for the city. How are we gonna do that? And we made some discussions and some decisions on, you know, how are we gonna find some more funding? So CNS, the city, Christina and her team went after, you know, multiple grants, and we kind of took a pause for a little while in hopes of that these grants would come to fruition. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. We were hopeful, but they didn't pan out, and I think there was 2 grants that we went after, and they just didn't pan out. So so that kind of leads us into, you know, continuing to update the documents and move forward. And, you know, as time goes on, prices go up. And as the quantities and pricing goes up, you know, we're using best information that we have at the time, you know, recent bid prices and average weighted bid prices from the state. So everything just kind of keeps ticking upward as time goes on. So, you know, here we are today in January, and our latest, you know, when we see 10 million, and the 10 million is total project. So I mean, that was the design that we've already done, that's construction inspection. So that's kind of total package of where we're at when we see almost $10.4 million. So that's where we are today. February 10th is when the bids get open, and, you know, I really, really hope that we're the high bidder in that, and that everything is, you know, that we really were conservative, and hopeful that the contractors sharpen their pencil and give us a really good price. So continuing on in the funding, and I kind of touched on this before, you know, so why is there a funding gap? Again, Bridge New York 2021, that's when the application was done. We found out that our hands-on inspection was much worse than what we were led to believe in the initial application. And the big kind of bummer on this whole thing is that the Bridge New York 21 rules don't allow DOT to ask or add more funds. And I know CNS and the city, we went back and forth multiple times with the DOT, and unfortunately, based off of the legislation and those rules, they are not able to add more money to that pot. So, you know, kind of moving forward, so what's the city's plan to pay for this? And I want to thank Christina for helping, you know, lay a lot of this stuff out. So right now, you know, the proposed revenue sources, New York State touring routes, you know, you're looking at 1.7, 1.8 million. And then you're close, you know, the rest of it really in bonding, which is, you know, around that, you know, $3.9 million. And you can kind of see through the tables, I don't have to read through them, the different cost breakdowns for design, construction, and you can see where the total comes from, you know, to almost 10.4 million. And then down below, the revenues or the funding that's available between the Bridge New York funds, state touring routes, and then what the bonding is expected from the city. Now, of course, this number and the bonding number could all change, and we hope it's going to be less in a couple weeks when the bids come in. But this was our, you know, best foot forward, you know, for right now to get in front of everybody, to understand where the funding, you know, could be in anticipation of going to, you know, bonding at the next council meeting, the first read. And last thing is just really what's next, and I've kind of gone through, you know, here's the dates, bid opening, first reading bond ordinance. You know, we're shooting for a commitment the 19th, and a lot of this is needed to get the contractor, you know, moving as quick as possible. So we're hoping for the DOT approval for award in March. Of course, contractors got to do all their work in the agreements. April, construction begins in May, and we're shooting for an end of November of 27 timeframe for the bridge to. It'll be fully open before then, you know, before that Labor Day, but you know, the rest of the buttoning up, you know, to do through the project. And that concludes. Yep. What I have, and I'm sure there's questions.
Councilor Cody?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Reyna, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
You talked about, there were a couple dates that you had mentioned earlier. Do you have a little bit more detail on what was done in 1985 and 2002, and then the scope of those two projects, and then the scope of this project in relation to those two projects, just to give the public some reference to what was done, because from my just initial observation, it's about 20 years apart from those, and you know, what was done in 1985 that led it to last for a certain amount, and what's different about 2026?
So I'm going to take a stab at it, and if there's certain things, I'm going to ask, you know, Miss Jessica or Jim to add in.
Okay, great.
Certainly if I misspeak, but I'm going to take a stab at it. So in 1985, like I said, it was a complete deck replacement. So everything above, you know, they took the deck off, the concrete, they added an extra beam in there because they did some stage construction, you know, new sidewalks, new concrete, and that was pretty much it. I mean, big deal.
So is that part of the 2026 one? Are we doing a whole deck replacement?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
so, all right, very
Yep.
good.
So 85 deck replacement. Today, we're going to take the deck off and do it again, only meeting new standards, right? Because I was talking about the railing and the sidewalk, right? What's different in 1985 is, and even in 2002, the steel, since it was built in 1954, has really never been touched. So it's held out pretty well, but this project is addressing the deterioration of the steel, the structural portions of it.
What happened in 2002?
So 2002, it was pretty limited, I believe, to some bearing work, and mostly it was substructure work. So they a lot of hollowing of the concrete. They, you know, took off, you know, the faces of the concrete, you know, did a lot of concrete repair and put it back. So 2002 was more below the steel, and this project has to do that again. Okay. So we're kind of doing, other than replacing the entire bridge, we're kind of going from top all the way down.
Okay, so it's basically,
Go ahead,
we're
Larry.
combining 1985 with 2002 work, and we're not replacing the bridge. And I know we had talked about how much it would cost to replace the bridge. Do you have an estimate of how much it would cost to replace the bridge?
Yeah, so I mean, it was in, I mean, if we were doing it, you know, at the same time frame, we were in that like $15 million range, you know, so
And
it's,
back then, we'll do the math, but, so, back then it was like, we were looking at, was it 4 million, or, no, was it, we had, what was the original price that we had? It was like 5 million, correct?
yeah, that was the award for
Original
bridge,
price,
yeah, right.
And then, but the total replacement was 15 million.
It was
correct?
15, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
What's the difference between rehab and replacement? Again, like, what are some of the things that brought it that much up, that much further? and price?
Sure. Well, so the replacement is really what it sounds. I mean, you are tearing down everything, and it's all new substructure work, all new, brand new steel, brand new deck, which you're going to get anyway. But it could be a completely different looking bridge. It's very long. It spans through the river. So now we're into doing river work. It's a lot more in-depth construction and time that it would take.
And closer to the river, that is, how do we say it? There was no issues with anything than what was in the rehab, is that correct? So the 25-year expectancy of it, that is including towards the river, correct? Like the structure towards the river.
Yeah, so the piers that are in, the river itself, I mean, there will be some work that we're gonna do, like, above the water line, if you will, above the footing, but I mean, structurally, the bridge is fine, what it's sitting on, which is all rock down there.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
Councilor Diego?
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Something I'm trying to process.
Mm-hmm.
Going back to
Counselor, they're saying in the back they can't hear you.
Oh.
Yeah.
when this project started in 2021, and you had just stated a few moments ago, you said that we went off available inspection reports at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Is that normal to not actually do a hands-on inspection? And the reason I'm asking is because, as it turned out, obviously there was a lot more work that needed to be done. The prices more than doubled, and we're not eligible for any more funding because we went off the original estimate. I'm having a hard time understanding how
Sure.
we aren't hands-on before any of this even starts to say this is what's, you know what I mean? Can you explain a little bit how that works, or where these reports came from, or why we don't actually look hands-on? Which,
Sure.
honestly, it ended up costing the city a lot of money.
Yes. So the way these programs, they're all competitive programs. So we go through, the municipalities, and sometimes they hire consultants to help them do, applications. And it's not I don't want to say a large effort in the sense of going out there and doing just that. I mean, to do a hands-on inspection, it took us a week to go out there and do that. And it was, so if you look at the time, we can talk about this, but it's like to hire the engineer to go and spend a week out there and do 100% hands-on bridge inspection and get all the equipment, the rentals and all that stuff. I can't tell you what that number of the cost was, would have been at that time, but that's typically not what a municipality would spend to prepare an application. It's just usually, above and beyond. So in most cases, for certainly most bridge projects, the biennial inspection reports are good enough to do what needs to be done. And, there was, some information, and what the biennial inspection report really is for is, what they're looking for is there a critical issue on a bridge that requires them to degrade it, give it a flag, that it needs an immediate repair. So when the biennial inspectors are going up there, they're looking at stuff, but they didn't get into the detail that we did, where we literally mapped the entire face, every section of the beam. The biennials don't do that. They're just looking at different spots. So, I mean, I understand where you're coming from. Hey, why didn't we do the hands-on first? Because then we would have known, whether or not this project should have gone through this particular application or not. Again, that's just not typically what is done, or that level of expense at the time is done, for those applications.
Right, and just circling back around the same thing, it may have been very expensive to do that inspection up front, like you're saying, the amount of time, but on the backside, we could have put an application that said the bridge is $9 million, and maybe the state would have gave us $7 or $8 million. That's the part that I'm struggling with, because we are closed off at.
Can I just interrupt and I'm sorry to interrupt, but we actually applied for and received the max amount of money that the state will give us. If that came in at 15 million, the amount they were going to give us was the amount that was awarded, because that legislation for Bridge New York capped it at that amount.
Okay,
there was no other avenue for us to get more money. So if we had hired the engineer and it came in at 10 million, they were still going to say that this is the max that and it would have been that amount.
Oh, that would be, that's something maybe we could just throw in here or something so people know, because I've been asked that question multiple times this week. If that was, put out there, then we'd know, hey, it didn't matter that the inspection wasn't done. I was more on the basis of we could have got some more money towards this project if inspection, was done. The only other question I had was, you talk about the sidewalk and railings, they're not up to code, this and that, and standard. Were they in 1985 and 2002 when they did the bridge work last time, or has something changed?
Yes, I would say yes. I mean, when they did the bridge, when they did the deck replacement, back in 1985, it met standards then. So there's been upgraded railing and code requirements, for what they call impact for railing, and we have, anytime we do work now, like, we have to upgrade. So we're taking it all off. We can't put back what's there now. We have to meet the current code. It's not like like today, it's not like we're going to shut the bridge down because, like, well, it doesn't meet today's code. It was fine then, but based off of heavier trucks and different vehicles that are on the road today than were back then, the code changes, so now we have to meet that.
Right, and then just the price is basically just an estimate, because we don't even have the bids in at this point, so it could be more, it could be less, basically.
It could. We're hoping less.
Right, and would that be the same? Is there anything in the bids that went out that says this is our time frame? Because they have to be on par. You hire out a firm and they say, well, we're not going to be able to start till next October or something. You know what I mean? Is that part of the process so that we're online to get this thing started before when it's supposed to be, and it'll be open by the next school year?
Yep. Yeah. All of that information is outlined in the contract documents, and the changes. We had certain dates in the initial bid documents that went out, and after that pre-bid meeting that I was telling you about, and we got some feedback from the contractors, we made changes in that, and so the addendum that just went out makes those changes and clearly identifies dates that this is when the bridge can be closed, this is when it absolutely has to be open. You can't impact the school district past this date or before this date, that sort of thing. So all of that is outlined in the contract.
Perfect. I appreciate the presentation.
Yeah, thank you.
And Councilor Diego, excellent point. The slide does say that Bridge New York 21 rules don't allow New York State Department of Transportation to add funds, but just for clarification, to your point, we applied for and did receive the maximum amount. So thank you for bringing that up. I know we have talked about that in the past here, but I'm sure there's members of the public watching that haven't watched the meetings in the past. So excellent point. Thank you.
Yes, I just wanted to, Councilor Diego brought up a good point about the school, very important bridge for Auburn High School and other schools within the district. Is that the only item in Addendum 3 that gave us flexibility? Is there any more details in Addendum 3 that allowed contractors more flexibility?
It was really more about time.
Time frame. Okay.
It was time. So we, in the initial proposal, and the school district was again great on the initial proposal of looking at, okay, which would have been like this time, like right now, of like say like after February break, we're gonna reroute the buses because we're in anticipation of the closure. And then, but what we were hearing back from the contractors is that there's just so much work that has to be done to the bridge that they won't be able to get it done in the time frame that we had given them, which would have just amped up the price even more.
Okay.
One of the things that I wanted to throw this out there because I think it's a pretty big number. If you think about it, every one of these, if you look at it closer, the rivets are on the bridge. What they have to do, the entire bottom of the main girders that go down, there's like 3,800 rivets that have to come out individually that they have to drill out and then put new plates on and then bolt together. It's a lot of work and it's a lot of time. So we were getting a lot of that feedback, and they're like, listen, if we can extend this and we can have like a season and a half, 2 seasons, it will be better for everybody. So we went back to the school district and we asked them, said, what do you think about this? And they were great. They said, we'll do whatever needs to be done. And so they were already on board. They had a plan in place, and we were able to move it. So very appreciative to the district.
Great. Thanks for the detail.
Yep.
Councilor Overstreet
Yep.
Wilson?
In your professional estimation, if we do not address this problem now, what is the life expectancy of the bridge right now? How long do you think it will last if we do not address this?
That's a tough question. I mean, I'll just put it this way. It will continue to deteriorate to a point where you may get a flag from the DOT that says you now are forced to do something. And when those come about, sometimes they can be very difficult, because it could be a very serious flag where, you may have to shut the bridge down because there's something that is structural that it's like you can't have traffic over it right now because we noticed this one piece that is critical. Sometimes there's just safety flags, yellow they're called, that is just like, well, let's just keep an eye on it. I'll just say like one of the other projects in here, like Aurelius Ave, that is another project here that has sidewalks that are hanging over that, have structural flags that are on it that you have to shut down that part. Like nobody can go over that part of the bridge. That's a big deal. You don't want that to happen on the actual main travel lane, right? So when could that occur? I can't really tell you, but I will say that it won't get any better over time. And today we're saying it's $15 million if you have to replace it. I don't know, 5 years from now, I mean, something happens, who knows, and now it's like, now we're forced to replace it. It's $20 million, and the state doesn't have the ability to help in any way, and now the bridge has to get shut down, and there could be just a lot of cascading effects that it's important to take care of it now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
One last question. When you met with the school district and they said that the interruption would be limited in terms of folks taking their kids to school, is that based on the fact that it would be summer school that would be going on in terms of the school district being impacted by that bridge being down?
No, so their plan, so again, we're going to shut down here this summer, so we'll have, the summertime, and then they're committed to this new bus route that will be outside of, obviously the bridge being closed, pretty much the entire next school year. So start of, the next school year in September, because the bridge will still be closed through the winter and then into the spring. That's why we're saying that following year, the bridge absolutely has to be open before Labor Day. And we're hoping it's going to be open earlier. But, we're trying to give that buffer of, God forbid something happens, but it needs to be open before the school starts, because we can't have them go through that again. They've been very gracious on doing a school year plan.
And one last question, and this might be for the mayor or the city manager. What additional cost in terms of the different departments, when we close this bridge down, have you estimated that it might cost in terms of support from the other departments? And that may not be an additional cost, but I'm just asking, like with support from the police department, will there need to be people out there redirecting traffic? And I'm asking because some of those projects that happened on North Street, they actually had people out there redirecting traffic. So I'm wondering if there will be an additional cost to that in addition to the monies that we have to bond for, or will that come out of the department budget?
Scott, do you anticipate any additional assistance being needed for traffic control around here beyond the detours?
No, but we did, when we talked to emergency services, the fire department specifically, they said where we're located, we would really just choose Wasco Street or Osborne Street. We would cross at Genesee Street and then we would service our residents in that direction, so there wouldn't be an additional stationed vehicle. Police department was thinking that there might be some need for some additional, there might be some need for an additional car station, but we didn't anticipate that yet.
Okay, I'll ask another question.
All set? Councilor Cuddy, you have another question?
Yes, this, I may need our comptroller for some, just obviously bonding for this. Can you let us know what are there some bonds and bans going off so so we can kind of have an equilibrium? Because again, obviously debt is a concern. Can you please explain what debts are coming off the rolls that this might replace?
So I am gonna phone
Or
Christina
Christina,
too.
yes.
But my anticipation is that this would be a bond anticipation note initially.
Okay.
That we would hold that for the 5 years, that we're allowed to hold bond anticipation notes to make sure construction is complete. And then we would convert it to long-term debt. Your guess is as good as mine as what interest rates would look like in, 5-ish years, because, by the time we actually borrow it, we would borrow in August, and then we would be 5 years out from that date where we would convert it to long-term. I would have to look at our maturity schedules again and see what's coming off. I can get that for you.
Okay, that would help.
But we wouldn't convert to long-term until that 5-year window.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, just like projects that are coming offline, just I think will help us all for this. This
I will take a
decision.
look and get back to you. I'm sorry, I don't know.
That's fine. No, that's fine. And let me see here. Oh, yes, and this would be for Ms. Selvig. This Bridge New York is not something we can put in our pocket in case there is instead of a rehab, they want to replace years down the road.
I like how you think, Counselor.
Yeah, I know. I doubt the state.
If there was a way
allows
for
that.
me to pocket the money, I totally would.
To hold on to it, but
Yes.
what's the time frame for the usage of this Bridge New York?
So
grant?
we're already at the bitter end, I think,
Okay.
of extending our useful life with these funds. So these funds were supposed to be federally obligated last year. We actually requested an extension on that to look for additional funds for the project. We submitted 2 applications to the Federal Northern Border Regional Commission for the bridge, if you remember. It did not score highly because they actually prefer projects that have a water or sewer component. And if I recall, our utilities are actually in fairly good shape on this bridge, so we don't have a water fund our sewer fund component when we go to borrow. So unfortunately, I couldn't make the project look worse and get points, so we weren't eligible for that funding. We did reach out to New York State ESD, and we had asked about their capital program. They are no longer, they're shifting gears right now, and I think a lot of that's because of Micron. They're not doing municipal capital projects as much as they used to, so they deemed this ineligible. We actually did reach out to the Micron RFP that was happening last fall, and we submitted this for submittal from the city because of its tourist component, part of our infrastructure, et cetera. That wasn't accepted. We reached out to all our electeds at the state level. They wrote letters on our behalf. The state actually responded to Assemblyman Lamondes and said, look, because of the legislation that created the 2021 bridge program, we can't offer any additional assistance to this project. So we were really trying to pull rabbits out of hats where we could and came up empty-handed.
So the touring, $2 million for touring?
So touring, yes. So at the moment, those formula allocations that engineering receives each year from DOT would be an eligible use for this project. We have 2.1 million right now in rollover that we can use towards this project. And at the moment, I believe Governor Hochul had said she's looking to re-up that program for this next fiscal year.
Okay. All right. Okay. I believe that when we were, thank you, Ms. Elvick.
Yes.
Thank you. I believe that when we were determining, you know, how we were going to, you know, work through the road infrastructure in the city, I think we had in mind, like with the standard Ave North Street, we felt that it was important to align those with the North Street rehabilitation. If I remember correctly, you know, next year we're going to do Lake Ave, correct? Is that correct? So, you know, you know, Councilor Diego, I agree. It's like, it's doubled. It's doubled. It's like really, really unfortunate that we're seeing these prices skyrocket. You know, obviously, I'm very interested in a few things, where we are with our past projects when it comes to our bonds and our debt. And, but at the same time, you know, I'm reminded of, you know, there are governmental bodies that, you know, kick the can down the road and don't take care of the things that are essential for, you know, the municipality or the government to run properly. And you know, I'm very interested to see what the quotes are going to be. I hope they come in less than what CNS's bid, or like projected. But you know, this is an important project. You know, there's funding from the state that will help us, and you know, I just hope that we can hope that the bids come in so that we can see this through. But there's a lot of things that I want to see and hear before I make my official decision. But thank you, Mr. McIntyre and Mr. Reyna and everyone.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just one last question. I had spoke with Ms. Elvick and Mr. McIntyre spoke about it also, talking about we had rolled over about $2 million last year towards this project, and I believe we stated we were going to try to do the same thing this year when that funding comes through. So this bond anticipation note may not be $4 million, give or take. It could possibly be $2.5 million, depending on when that funding comes through and we know how much we're going to get. Is that accurate?
So that is definitely up to council. So, you know, I try not to count my chickens before they hatch. The governor has produced late budgets of recent. So to Count on STR again for the state budget. I mean, it seems highly likely, but it still has to get approved, and that's just her proposed budget and not what's been through the Assembly or the Senate yet. We have done a really good job with bidding recently, project management. Scott's crews have been really, really good about that. And we do have money available for the project now. You could amend the bond ordinance in a way that would give you flexibility should future STR be available to the city, that you could use that to reduce your debt burden.
Yeah, that was my next question.
Yep.
If we,
So I could work with bond counsel on that to make sure that that language is in there. So at time, because you're going to have to approve the borrowing before we know what the state budget's going to be. We can't wait. We got to order, there's long lead items that have to get ordered for this bridge project.
right, but it will be an option if the council decides that we're going to take X
Yep,
amount from
you can
STR
put-
this year to take a lower bond.
Yep, you could do that. So I do want to say, though, sometimes municipalities need to borrow funds for cash flow during the project. So the state is not always very prompt with their reimbursements. For example, our arterial maintenance, engineering submitted that in July. We just received our arterial maintenance reimbursement. So to carry that cash on a very large capital project in the general fund while you're redoing your wastewater treatment plant, I might caution. You may want to issue the bond, borrow the funds. We have 0 interest, I believe, the first year normally. So it's normally 0 interest on the first year in the ban, and then come August of 27, if we find we had other funds available to us, we can return the proceeds on a certain amount and then reduce the long-term borrowing.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Council all set? Thank you all for the presentation tonight. This has been, as was shown in the presentation, it's been a long process. I've been involved in meetings where I think my blood pressure was pretty high when we were talking about the costs. But I think everybody's done a really good job of showing the public that, there is a process here. And there's a process from the time money's awarded to the time the bid is awarded to the time of completion. This was a unique circumstance because we did hit the pause button trying to go back to the state and the federal government multiple times. Ms. Selvig, thank you. I'd forgotten about the northern border applications. We tried everything we could to bring more money in. This is the reality of it. And I think we have a good plan. I think staff's done a really good job with CNS to get us to this point. And I've been here for when a bridge has been flagged, and that was Division Street. And that bridge was slated to be replaced, and the city had to put in temporary fixes, which costs a high amount of money. So we don't want to get to that point where we're flagging a bridge, especially when there is funding. Again, thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Moving on to second quarter grants update, Ms. Selvig, Director of Capital Projects and Grants.
All right, everyone good? Okay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you, as always, for the opportunity to provide an update regarding our grants portfolio here at the city. I am Christina Selvig. I'm the Director of Capital Projects and Grants, and I will be presenting where we are to date with our grants program for our second quarter of our fiscal year. All right. So for the benefit of our new counselor and the public, sorry about the microphones. So what is a city's grant program? It really consists of 2 major components. We have projects and we have funding. Here at the city, we have really 5 major project sources, and those consist of all of our strategic plans that we have. The major one, our comp plan, our annual plans such as CDBG, capital improvement plan, and then our long-range plans such as DRI and our Parks Master Plan. And then funding, which we kind of just touched base on with our bridge project. So we have federal, we have state, and local, right? And these are our local foundations and private foundations that sometimes we lean on. And that equals our availability for grant funding. And so our project pool informs our grant funding, and sometimes the grant funding informs the project pool, and we try to marry them together for successful projects. And this is our alphabet soup. So these are our partner agencies. In this day and age, projects rarely are completed on our own as a local municipality. So all city departments, work at some level with either program grants, major project grants, with their federal, state, and local foundation partners to get them completed. And these are just a few of our partner agencies that we are currently working with. All right, city's general fund. We are pretty busy with grants right now in our general fund. We have about $35 million in general fund dollars, the majority of which is in our highway improvements, which is really no surprise. So we have 24 major projects across general fund. Some of these include CDBG, which then from there, there's many sub-grant projects. So when you really look at it, we have a very, very large project portfolio across all our general fund grants. So our highway projects right now, which we just touched based on one of our bridges, but that includes our roads and culverts. So our public safety often includes more programs and initiatives such as Strive and Give right now, as well as equipment. Our parks and community projects. So we have several. A lot of that includes tree planting, beautification, and other planning initiatives. Our economic development projects, 4 of those are our Restore New York grant projects, and we also have a housing initiative, and then currently 2 city fleet vehicle projects in our police and fire department. And all the details about the grants that I'm talking about tonight were included in the council packet for the public if they want to reference. So just at a high level, so our new grant projects we're working on, I just mentioned our command and patrol vehicles. We are currently actually out maybe for mini bid on both of those. Our downtown beautification, which would include our flower pots. These are our CREST funded programs through DASNY. The planning department actually has been really busy, so they're going to be gearing up to kick off their comprehensive plan update, and you're going to hear more about that, as well as our vacant rental housing program. Continuing projects, we're currently in winter construction mode, so DPW is busy, but not so much maybe for our masons. So we're hoping to get back to the pond wall repairs there at Hoops Park. And then we just spoke about Lake Avenue Bridge. We are in the closeout phase for a equipment grant for the AFG training grant that Auburn Fire did secure. And then we have finished all the improvements related to the Casey Park boiler. So I did want to touch base as well that 2025 was a tough year for New York State and local governments in trying to secure grant funds. At this point, based on Cornell, actually has done some recent work with their Industrial and Labor Relations College and has posted that New York State has been a reduction of about $16 billion in federal funds to a lot of our social programs. And these would be mostly funded by general funds across the state at the local level. So these are social services, education, health programs like SNAP. And it's really difficult for communities on a fly to replace where these funding sources are coming from. So the trickle-down effect I mean, the city has struggled a little, in particular, like our AFG grants. We submitted 2 applications, one for a fire pumper, one for an ambulance in the fall of '24. They normally take almost a year for review and award. They were not funded, but then when you look at the funding list that's available, New York State didn't do well at all across the board. So that's federal money, New York State. You know, we'll see what happens next year. And our tree grant. So U.S. Forest Service, in January, we were issued basically a stop spending, a spending freeze, and said we're not sure these funds are going to move ahead. You know, then finally, end of February, March, we're told we think the funds are still there, and then we were told to stop again. So this makes it very difficult for municipalities to gear up for projects and programs. So we really are behind in spending those funds down because we missed the spring and summer planting season. We had a great turnout this fall for our community planting, and we're hoping to maybe do some creative initiatives here going forward to get those funds spent down. All right, and that was general fund. Any questions on general fund? Okay. Oh.
Question?
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think every time we get an opportunity to say that the grants we apply for specific projects can only be used on those specific products, on those specific projects, I think we need to reiterate that. Because on different social media platforms, and I do get phone calls as well, saying, well, that money should be spent on this and that money. So I think every time we get the opportunity for our community to hear, if we apply for a grant and it is awarded for, let's say, our tree program, our downtown beautification, it can only be spent on that.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes,
Okay.
and you know, we have brought many grant resolutions before council and will continue to do so. And we try to, in our background memos and, you know, public discussions, outline, you know, here's the eligibility criteria for what the funds can be used for, and here's what we think can best, right, fit and be competitive at either the state or federal level for those grant dollars.
All set? Okay. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Okay. All right, so the city's water fund, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on water and sewer tonight. We have several projects to bring to you later on in the spring. So this is primarily our Department of Municipal Utilities and DPW water departments, and they are continuing to prioritize water quality projects. So this includes our lead service line inventory, as well as the subwatershed mapping of Vaness and Sucker Brooks. In the watershed, and hopefully actually that engineering plan will be available within the next couple months, and we'll get them before you guys to show the work that they've been doing. We have completed the slow sand filter upgrades, and we're currently finishing up the rapid sand filter HVAC project improvements, and we hope to close that out with EFC here this coming quarter. And then we're just gearing up on the Franklin Street water main, which I know Seth came and spoke to you guys just a couple of weeks ago. All right, city sewer. We have a number of city departments supporting sewer right now, and this is for a very obvious reason. So our biosolids and wastewater treatment plant improvement project, it continues to be one of our major and largest grant-funded projects in the city's history. We have $34 million in grant funds currently. We have been dispersed and received $19.25 million of that from the state, so we're doing pretty good compared to the project progress. So if you know our Director of Municipal Utilities, he is always keen on trying to leverage more resources for projects. So we are currently still looking for additional federal funds for that project, and probably will be coming to you, I think, the week of February 12th to have Baker Tilly, which is our consultant for our federal tax credits, come and speak to you about potential more money for that project. All right, and what I did want to spend some time tonight talking about is the city's ARPA program. So in response to the audit report and the city budget prep that's currently underway, council had mentioned that maybe having a staff presentation on the city ARPA funds and program was needed at this time. So these are pictures of our 4 community reports disclosing the ARPA program, in general, what it was used for, the progression of allocated funding, and now that the program's in closeout. So if you recall, ARPA was first approved in March of 2021. And about 350 billion was authorized back in 2021. And when we talk about escalation and inflation in project prices, our bridge project timed it perfectly. We had all these extra widgets going into the economy, and we were trying to do engineering and estimates on a bridge project, and all of a sudden you have more money hitting the market. And so the cost of all these widgets, it was just, it's an unfortunate, situation, but it's the one that we're in, and it's the one that every community across New York State is dealing with. So while ARPA funds were very valuable to us, across the board, it has caused some inflation in our economy, and we're just having to work through that and deal with it. All right, so ARPA, or the Coronavirus State and Local Federal Relief Fund, known as CSL-FRF, the city was awarded $21,395,055, and we received that in 2 installments. The U.S. Treasury is the oversight agency and has provided voluminous documents on FAQs, reporting guidance, the final ruling, summaries, and other eligible expenses for which municipalities could use these funds for. We're currently on version 10.1 for project guidance. So it's been a process, and I would say in comparison to our project partners, the city's done a very good job of issuing resolutions and being very public about where these funds have gone. So over the course of 3 to 4 years, council did about 22 resolutions for these funds, and we really focused on about 15 project and program areas. First of which was revenue replacement, and then assistance. So we talked about assistance to our local not-for-profits, our tourism industry, small business, our parks and rec, technology upgrades, particularly in our police department, water quality improvements, and then ultimately there is a little cost related to program administration and audit. So lost revenue. The Treasury allows you to take a standard allowance. This was eligible to the city starting in January of 2022. Prior to that, the city comptroller had to manually calculate what the lost revenue was, if you recall. And so in that spring, summer of 2021, we did do our first lost revenue resolution. And so that's that $3,874,085 that you see there. These were lost revenues recognized across all city funds. We do have a slight general fund balance currently of about $49,000 available to the comptroller for use this year, because the funds have to be expended and out the door by December. Those are subject to the COVID eligibility requirements, so use on technology, HVAC, etc. From there, the fiscal year 21, 22, and 23 years. Those are the budgeted amounts that were used for revenue loss. So going back to all city funds, what was the revenue loss that the city received, and then those were what was claimed to the standard allowance, and that reaches your $10 million. And then the other balance of the funds, this is everything. So this is all the funding that was authorized over the last 3 years. The roll-up of the project name, these are what's eligible to us through U.S. Treasury. So if you recall back in 2021, when our police chief had to go patrol for people wearing masks at Wegmans and at places that they were exercising. I mean, there's costs to this. So it was actually called COVID enforcement. We also had our fire department responding to COVID calls, you know, other city workforce that was dealing with that. So that's actually the bulk of the funding that you see there. From there is very project driven. So we have the downtown parking garage, we have the closure of the landfill and the leachate, and that was our water quality project. Aid to tourism, the not-for-profits, still working on our vacant and abandoned buildings program. The technology upgrades, that is the body-worn camera program. Small business recovery, marketing of our historic sites. Urban forestry was some of our initial tree work. Casey Park Skate Park, which has been a huge success. The initial design for City Court, which is not lost, just shelved, and the boiler, and then right now where we're at with audit admin and basically close out costs for the program. And then for 2026, these are the programs that are left. So we are finishing up our aid to tourism, aid to our not-for-profits, which planning has done an amazing job working with our human service and food bank industries here in the city. We are still working through our vacant and abandoned deteriorated building program. We have one actually property that's just been approved for demolition, so that will be worked on this spring. One more payment for the body-worn cameras. Little bit of money for historic sites marketing, so our DPW is going to be able to use that. And then that's the balance of the admin and audit costs. And that's where we are at. I think that was about, what did I write? $254,000 and change. And that is the accounting of the city's ARPA.
Any questions from the council? Councilor Diego.
That one slide, that second from the last one, where you were talking about the COVID enforcement, was a little over $3 million. You actually have a breakdown of where that went, line item per se? Just because it's such a large amount.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I would have to go back to the quarterly reports and try to dig that out for you, Counselor. So a lot of that is funding that I think the comptroller was trying to get approved by FEMA as part of our disaster recovery costs, and FEMA determined we're ineligible.
Yeah.
So
yep. Can I just make a point of clarification? I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't think the entire 3.078 million was COVID enforcement. That was a component of it, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
I just want to make sure we didn't spend $3 million making sure people were wearing masks.
No. You know, we're forced to track COVID time, though, during that time. And so if you do recall those discussions with our former comptroller and her explaining that, New York State forced municipalities to track that time.
Yeah.
Because, you know, either for eligibility for reimbursements or audit in the future. Yes, Counselor?
I mean, like, the fire department was administering vaccines.
Yes,
and there was a,
yes.
there was a
It
lot,
had,
like,
there was a lot
that
the city was doing, yeah.
Working and cooperating with other
So
agencies.
like early on, when vaccine clinics started, City staff manned the phones and helped schedule people that were calling in. Fire department actually went to the high rises and administered vaccines to people who were homebound. So that's all included in that. So
that's that it was paying the wages basically for the people. Okay.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
Good
we
question,
were-
though.
Mhm.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, very good.
Yes.
Wait a second.
Are you all set, Counselor? Good.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Counselor Overstreet Wilson?
Yep, I have 2 questions. The first one being, we had a time frame within that we had to spend the ARPA funds, right? And when these projects are completed, we are out of ARPA funds.
So technically, we are out of ARPA funds now, right? Because we had to tell U.S. Treasury in the reporting portal that as of December 31st, 2024, right, that we were taking the funds that they fronted us, and we have already obligated them to specific purposes. So we can no longer go in there and make changes. And if we didn't tell them how we were going to use the money, they were going to take it back. So, so obviously,
But we used
the
it all.
comptroller. So, the cash is not spent. All right. So, let me see.
It's allocated.
It's allocated. Actually,
Yes.
it's probably the best one. So it is allocated. So when I say, for example, like the body worn camera program, right? So we had a 5-year lease on body worn camera equipment. We used a federal grant and ARPA funds to match the federal grant to start that program. So because we signed the lease with the vendor, right, the comptroller creates an account, takes the cash from ARPA, puts that into that capital account, and then uses it to pay down, the vendor expenses over that time frame. So the cash is here, it's just not eligible to be spent by council. Does that make sense? Okay.
That was my question.
Yeah.
All set?
Yes.
Any questions?
All set.
Ms. Selvig, thank you. Appreciate it.
Great, thank you very much. Have a good
So
night.
I just wanted to make sure that everybody and the public also looks at the full grant report. 29 total projects, $77.8 million that is being managed across all of these funding sources. So Christina, thank you for overseeing all of that, and to our staff for all of that work.
Absolutely. And for our final presentation, Ms. Leeson, City Comptroller.
Good evening.
Welcome back.
Thank you. I'm going to try to do my best left-handed with the slides, so
Let me know if you need help. We can-
we'll
we can
see if I
help
do
you out.
okay. I've been practicing. So thank you for having me here tonight. We wanted to provide a little bit of an update as to where we are. We had agreed early on that quarterly would be a good time to discuss kind of where we are financially. Everyone knows I haven't been painting the prettiest picture of late, and I don't think this is going to do anything different. I just wanted to talk a little bit before I get into the numbers about kind of how I got there. So obviously we have closed the books for December, and I have final numbers through the end of December. I'm projecting 6 months. A lot can change in 6 months, and I'm having to guess at where we're going to be. I did spend a lot of time on salary costs. It's a large part of our budget. I went through employee by employee and projected out what we're going to pay them through the end of the year, including the year-end accrual. But again, it's a guess, right? I can't predict overtime. I don't know when it's going to snow, and what kind of snow removal overtime we're going to have and that kind of thing. I can't predict when there's going to be a house fire. So, some of this is really hard to predict. Some is a little easier than others. So this is my best guess for 6 months. We'll do it again in 3 months and see where we are, but this is just a best guess. So I don't want you to bank on these numbers, because it's an estimate. So overview for the general fund. If you remember, when we adopted the budget, we budgeted to use $1 million of fund balance. We are going to end up using $3 million if we continue on the path that we're ending right now. Revenues are projected to not hit budget by about 1.2 million, expenses about 800,000. And so I just wanted to talk a little bit about the breakdown and why that is. So if we talk about revenues, occupancy tax was new for us this year. You know, I think, and Mr. Mason and I have talked about this a little bit, I think the collection this quarter was really good. The big hotels in the city are very compliant, are helping us. I'm not sure what the next best steps are going to be. Obviously, we weren't able to hit the ground running right on July 1st because it was passed kind of late in the cycle. So I do anticipate that next year revenue will be stronger. We would have to decide, I think, as a city, how aggressive we want to be in collecting this. But for the first year, I think we've done really well. I still don't think we're going to hit the number that we budgeted. We budget and have budgeted, and I think I've talked about this a little bit to council, for at least the last 14 years, we've budgeted to collect $250,000 of delinquent taxes that have not been recorded into revenue. Last year was the first year that we actually, our allowance ended up being bigger and our uncollectible number ended up being bigger. The $250,000 is budgeted. I don't think we're going to get any of that. Maybe we will. Collection is tough. We continue to do everything that we can do, but collection is tough. Parking revenue, I think that we've been doing a lot to try to collect old parking tickets. I think we're getting some of that program off the ground. I think that we are doing a lot. I think our parking enforcement officer is trying to do a lot and you know, monitoring the parking situation. There are some challenges to that. I'm sure you'll hear from police and from the parking enforcement people that, you know, the kiosks are aging out and we're going to have to put money into that, and do we want to put money into that, and those kinds of things. So I think parking is going to continue to be a discussion, but again, we're going to fall short. It was discussed quite a bit about funding from the school district for the crossing guards. Unfortunately, that's not going to happen, so we're $100,000 short there. Certificate of occupancy revenue, we did dig into this a little bit. I'm not projecting us to hit budget there. I do know that we are working on a certificate of occupancy for a bigger entity, which does end up bringing more revenue in. This is a place that maybe my projection is a little low. I'm not sure. Maybe in 3 months I'll have a better place to guess how that revenue will come in. We had hoped that the power utility fund would start paying back the general fund. We did budget money for that. Unfortunately, the fall was very dry. Probably one of our worst years that we've had as far as starting up energy production. So unfortunately, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, the power utility fund's revenue is way down and I don't anticipate them paying back. The good news in all of it is ambulance revenue has been very strong. Our collection efforts, I think, are working. Our billing process is working. Our revenue, I'm anticipating, will be slightly over budget there. So that is good news. I did, and I talked to the city manager about this, I did start digging in a little bit to how we're collecting what's being paid. I think we continue to have to monitor that. So not only what we bill to insurance, but if there's a copay from an individual, are they actually paying it? So we are digging a little bit into that. I always hesitate to do things this way, but I did, for this presentation, I broke it out by department. I don't like to call out one department versus another and judge one's budget performance. But I felt like this would be the easiest way for council to look at it. I set these slides up exactly how the budget book flows so that you could kind of compare if need be. First one is finance. So there was a budget adjustment that was made to the finance budget for fees. So we actually increased the revenue budget and expenditure budget, which does change the way that this performs against the original budget, because everything I'm comparing to is original budget. So that was the largest change. As far as the assessor, there's like just a little bit with the year-end payroll accrual, and that's a timing thing. So the accrual is going up, and that their budget is so small, they just don't have any room to make up for that. As far as property acquired for taxes, we are doing fairly well on sale of foreclosed properties, and the real estate fee goes into this account. So I think that's really what's driving that. The revenue kind of offsets it. In our corp council, we've had to use outside counsel for a couple of things that was not budgeted for. So unfortunately, they're over. And then engineering, again, that year-end payroll accrual. Some of the departments who primarily have salaries and not a lot of other budget lines, if the year-end payroll accrual goes up, it kind of pushes their budget. And I just as a quick note on that payroll accrual piece, so the way we budgeted salaries was like by pay period. And so sometimes there's a timing thing with the accrual. We've been so specific in the past couple of years down to like the exact pay period, and I think there's some flaws in that, so I'm going to be looking to change the way that we budget salaries in the coming year. So on this slide, unallocated insurance, so I go back to our insurance agent early on in the budget process and ask her to start contemplating what the rate increase is going to be for our coverage. When we went back and forth during the budget cycle, she said that I should budget for 10% increase, which is what we did. Unfortunately, that's not what it ended up being, so we're a little bit off. You'll see this in almost every fund. Police, and I'm not even going to be able to speak, so if there's questions on this, probably Chief Androsco would have to speak about it, but obviously we've had a lot of vacancies in our police department. We've hired people, they've been in the training cycle, but it takes a while until they count for manpower. I'm not even going to try to speak to how that works out, but ultimately, until they count for manpower, that's pushing our overtime costs, so definitely causing a problem there. Signal maintenance and street lighting was incredibly difficult for me to project right now. That is one employee. That position is currently not working and not on payroll. So we have to contract some of that work, which tends to be a little bit more expensive. That also pays for all of the electricity for the streetlights. That is trending very high right now. Fire, again, we held on some filling of positions, so overtime is up there. You would have to ask Chief about as far as like triggers and fires. If I know last year we had some struggles with the number of fires that we had and that type of overtime, but the contractual overtime is up because of vacancies. Ambulance, again, I think they've tried really hard to manage to that budget. I think vehicle maintenance has been lower than we anticipated. We had some significant vehicle maintenance costs towards the end of last budget cycle. So I think we were cautious when we budgeted a higher number because we were concerned as our fleet starts to age. I'm gonna knock on wood because so far I don't think it's been terrible, but I can't obviously predict where that will land. One of the things, and again, I talked about the way we budget for payroll. So in Public Works Administration, we do have an anticipated retirement. I've projected a payout for that. we do not budget for retirement payouts. So if someone retires and we have to pay out vacation or personal time, that is not budgeted anywhere. Sometimes we can, it takes a while to fill a position and it's offset, but not always. And it depends on the timing of the person separating from employment. So I'm anticipating that the retirement payout would push this over budget. Street maintenance, we've been, I would say, cautious in filling positions as things change. So by holding positions, I think we're, most of them in street maintenance are hard not to fill. We need people to plow and that kind of thing. So it's hard not to fill, but even taking a pause saves some money in those budget lines. Snow removal, I kind of hit on this earlier. I'm giving that my best projection. I mean, obviously right now we're through January, but who knows what February and March are going to be for winter. We could still have a nasty storm in March. Municipal parking, again, electricity is hitting us pretty hard. Parks, this is one area I think the auditors talked a little bit about how we are going to look at our parks facilities, Casey Park, Falcon Park, that kind of thing. Staff are kind of shared across these three budget lines, and so sometimes the way they're charged isn't the way they're budgeted, and I think that we really need to refine how we're going to budget those in the coming year. So that's kind of throwing off some of our budget numbers there. But ultimately, I think this is going to be an area of focus when we move forward. Special events, I think we've really tried hard to keep that, under budget while still providing some events for our community. Planning is still holding a vacancy. The urban forestry is one position that is currently vacant. Cemetery maintenance has had overtime. We're looking at some strategies on that. You'll see that debt in almost every budget is a little bit over. So when we converted to a long-term borrowing, there's debt administration costs that we get charged. In the past, the previous comptroller netted those against the premium on the bond interest. I did not net them, so interest income is high and the expense is actually in the expense. I don't prefer to net things in our books, so ours are separate. Employee benefits, we've talked a lot about health insurance. Health insurance is a component of this budget gap. So the premiums are set in October, typically at our health insurance consortium. So obviously I don't know what kind of rate increase we're gonna have when we set the budget. We had done a 42% increase the year before.
Can you say that number again?
42. So given that it was such a big increase the year before, I was not anticipating that we would have to do a really large increase. And early on in the reports from our advisor, our health insurance plan was performing really well. And over time, it kind of started to perform less well, if that's a term. So we ended up with a 14% increase. I did not budget for 14%. That's part of the problem. The other part of the problem is the way that we project retirement expenses. Retirement expenses, the way it's run on the state fiscal year, I had picked up the calculations and the way that it had been budgeted in the past, which is more on our pay cycle. So it was taking current salaries in our current budget and using the percentages. But given some of the changes in staffing we've had, it really isn't a more real accurate way to budget that. In addition, rates to the retirement system have gone up significantly. So the retirement gap is about $1 million. Mm-hmm.
So that's 56%, the insurance has gone up since last year.
in over a 2-year period, yeah.
Gosh, that's obviously it's very important for the public to know because everybody's asking, the budget this, the budget that, but 56% is absurd. That's insane.
It's really hard, and I, there's a whole lot of discussion on insurance, and there's so many different ways to look at it, and I feel like we've had some really good discussion between management and our union membership, and I think we're really trying hard to be good partners and finding good ways. I think there's a lot we can do, and we continue to work on it. Obviously, it's important that we provide good coverage for our employees, and I want to be able to do that. I tell people all the time, I'm on the insurance too, so obviously I want good coverage. But it has to be affordable. There's no magic answer. Medical expenses are medical expenses, and really we're paying claims. So we have to work on that. So it's definitely something that we've spent a lot of time on in this past year, I feel. We'll continue to push on that. But it's very hard. I mean, I'm very self-critical, but when we had done the 42% increase the year before, I never would have thought that we would need to do 14 again.
Yeah, it's just a logistical nightmare because if you don't get per se what the rate is going to be till October and the budget's approved in June, you have no idea, knowing how much you don't want to over budget, or
Right.
in this case, we were under figuring after a 42% raise last year. It's just that it's tough to work with.
It is tough.
So Mary Beth and I attended the consortium meeting last week, and they are going to try to project for us before we're done with our budget process based on the experience. So we won't have the approved rate, which won't happen again until October, but they're going to try to give us a better estimate than we had to work with before.
Can I ask, what did you budget for a health insurance increase this year?
I believe it was 8.
8%?
I think I initially started at 10, and then, as we were trying to bridge the gap, my thought was we did 42. Maybe we can make it at 8. And I do attend the health insurance consortium meetings every month and had been watching the claims, and it seemed to be performing well. But obviously, I'm looking at January, February, March. They're not setting a rate until October, so it's tough.
Yeah, it is tough, and it's not a problem that is relegated just to the city of Auburn. Everybody, municipalities across the state are dealing with this, private businesses are dealing with this. I'm dealing with it in my full-time job. I do want to say, and we talked a little bit about it, we have contractual obligations with our employees, and we have to live up to those. But there is ongoing discussion with employees, with the Health Benefits Committee, understanding that this is not sustainable. It's not sustainable for the city of Auburn. It's not sustainable for any municipality. It's not sustainable for this country. I was sharing with the city manager that before the meeting that Carthage Area Hospital just laid off 120 employees. ECMC Hospital in Buffalo is laying off 150 employees, all because of cuts in federal reimbursement rates. It's going to get worse. I'm glad that we are proactively working with the consortium, with our collective bargaining units and the Health Insurance Benefits Committee to try to get a handle on this. So I just wanted to say that because we are all very aware of what the situation is, and we're doing our best to mitigate it.
I think that it's one of those things that's incredibly important for me to spend time on. And I really appreciate the conversation that we've been having in our Health Benefits Committee with the union partners. I think that there's been some creative ideas, and I think we continue, I keep talking about throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks. And that committee has been good at, brainstorming and trying to get to a place where we can find a happy medium. What was eye-opening to me, and I think I've thrown this out to you before, is our consultant said to me 14% is a lot of money to the city of Auburn because you spend $10 million on health insurance, so 14% is $1.4 million. And you know, it's broken down by fund, and I'm not always looking at that total. And I was like, do we really spend 10 million? And when I went back, we do spend 10 million, and now a 14% increase, that's 1.4 million. If we increase our tax levy by 2%, that's only 500,000. So I can't even cover the increase in health insurance with the tax levy increase. So that was eye-opening to me. We have to be creative, and we're trying, and that's all we can do. We keep working at different solutions. Contractual obligations have to be met. And so we just keep working on it. But it's definitely, and it's a problem for the partners in that consortium. It's a problem for most employers, I think.
I have one more question on that slide.
Mm-hmm.
The overtime and cemetery maintenance, what is that all about? $7,000.
So my
That's a lot of digging.
It's not really digging, it's mowing and maintenance. And I know there were some staffing issues, so we've held on some positions and things like that. I have had conversations with the superintendent of public works about, can we allocate different staff to eliminate the overtime there?
So that's my question. Is that classified as a laborer?
It's a groundskeeper.
Groundskeeper. So a laborer and a groundskeeper are not the same classification?
A groundskeeper is a higher level.
Yeah, so a laborer is a grade 9, a groundskeeper is a grade 12.
And we can't send a laborer to the cemetery to mow grass?
That's
we can.
what we've been trying to work through.
I believe we're trying to work through that. So I'm trying to work through that, or can I take a different grade 12 that might have it in their job description and send out there to do it? So we're working through that because unfortunately, we just can't afford to pay overtime if we can avoid it.
Nor should we. Nor should we. There are plenty of positions throughout this organization that if we have a shortage somewhere, people need to regroup and adapt and overcome. Like, if these numbers don't wake people up to what the reality is, I don't even know what we're doing here. So if you have trouble making that happen, please let us know.
Okay. We have had the conversation. I'm obviously right now, there is no groundskeeper work being done. That person moves to DPW to plow for the winter. So by spring, the plan is to not have overtime.
Right,
there.
which is just jumping off what the mayor said, so that person can not be up there, there's no groundkeeping in the winter, and move the plow, but are we having any type of issue just putting someone up there to cut the grass in the summer? That's, like you said, I don't see the issue of the pay grade. I don't understand why it's got to be a pay grade 12 to cut grass or whatever the maintenance up there is. Is that in the contract, or is that just something
So it just has to be in their job description. We can't ask them to do something that's out of title.
So how often do we update their job descriptions?
So what the superintendent of DPW has been tasked with is to find someone in his workforce that has it in their job description so that we can try to eliminate the overtime.
Right, maybe in the future we can look at that. The department head should probably be updating the job descriptions every year. That's something that should be looked at every single year and updating to make sure that we get what we need for obviously what we're paying for.
Sure.
It's kind of hard to say this grade 12's got to take care of this, but we can't put a 9 up there when he's on vacation. That's not going to hold water.
Yeah, I think we're definitely we're having those conversations. Yes. We've had the conversation with the department head. I think, the union understands. And I think the city manager, once, we determine which person can go there, can assign them to a different location. So.
Thank you.
Agreed. Anything else before I move forward? Okay. So this is landfill. The goal with landfill in the budget for this current fiscal year was to start paying back the general fund. If you remember, landfill was in the hole. It owed general fund at the end of last year like $800,000. So when we budgeted, we were budgeting to try to pay a good chunk of that back. The revenue is a little bit under in my projections. So we'll do the same thing, talk a little bit about why that is. Refuse enforcement fees, so that would be like violations if people have trash out that doesn't follow the policy, that kind of thing, and are ticketed. I am not anticipating that we will reach that budget number. I know we've talked about it a little bit. The city manager and I have meetings with every department head on a monthly basis reviewing budget. This has been a topic of conversation. Obviously, if we're not issuing tickets and people are in compliance, that's good news, because we really, the tickets are to get people to comply with our policies. So we just need to make sure that we're budgeting properly, and that's something that we'll discuss as we go into next year's budget. Transfer station revenue, I'm projecting that to be a little bit low. I don't necessarily know if we have haulers that are not coming. I couldn't speak to that, but based on the revenue that we've collected to date, that's my projection. Certainly we could talk to Mike about whether or not there's been changes or if we need to budget differently. We did increase that budget last year just because our hauling fee is different, so we increased our fee based on the change in our hauling fee. Refuse collection fee, this is something that I've talked to council before about. So when we adopt the budget and we charge the refuse charge on people's tax bills, there are people who can apply for exemption. It is my goal in this next budget cycle to change our policy to set a time limit for when people can apply for exemption. What happens is we send the bills, and then as people begin to pay, they're like, oh, wait a minute, I shouldn't have to pay this, and then they bring their exemption form in. We've been allowing it throughout the fiscal year. I think that we need to set a timeline for people to comply. But that's why the revenue's lower.
Just a point of clarification, and this might be the city manager can answer this. So when they do hand in an exemption, does their property not get their garbage picked up, or does there still garbage get picked up at their property?
So I think that they do not get their garbage picked up at the property. So, and that's something that we actually, we're having some trouble tracking, like in the field, in the ground, and we have now a GPS mechanism that allows for our drivers and refuse collection to understand where they're supposed to be picking up and where they're not. So that if somebody does put garbage out, which happens, that, we can ticket them or other type of enforcement. So yeah, the exemption would be so that they do not pay the fee and do not receive the service.
Okay, and there's usually some stipulations for that exemption to happen. It would be like a business, correct? Have to be a business.
It has to be a business or a multifamily unit with four or more units.
4 units. Okay.
Yep.
So those are key. But there are mechanisms in place to kind of keep control of that.
Yes.
On a slightly side note, at Casey Park there is a what should I say?
Dumpster?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a camera on that dumpster? Because I'm sometimes there at Casey Park in the summer, and I see some people that might not live in the city and might leave some things there. So I do think that should be, obviously that should be enforced. Mm-hmm. Especially now that I'm seeing where we are and really, really unfortunate points here that I'm trying to wow. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that brought
we'll
up that no. So all right, but thank you.
Good. And then as we talked about, the interest earnings are higher. So landfill had a large amount converted to long-term debt. They did recognize a good amount of interest earnings on the premium, so that's why their interest number is higher. As far as expenses, you already heard me talk about insurance. We also are experiencing some cost savings down in our transfer station. That is really, that's typically, landfill is typically a starting place for our DPW staff. They usually start at landfill and then bid out, so the turnover tends to be a little bit higher there. So we've had some turnover at the transfer station, which is the budget savings there. And then this is debt service and employee benefits. Again, the health insurance is impacting this fund. The other thing that I did talk a little bit about with health insurance is when I do this budget, in a department that has turnover, this can be significant. Like if we have an employee that's is carrying a single plan and they bid out and go to DPW and then we hire somebody that takes the family, it does affect the budget, and in a department with, a lot of turnover, sometimes that can drive that as well. Any other questions on landfill? Power utility, as we talked about, revenue is a struggle here. Expenses, I'm projecting to be under budget only because they're not gonna pay back the general fund. I don't think they're gonna have money to do so. So this slide just talks about, and again, thank you to Christina for kind of helping to provide some background here, but we didn't get to start up production of energy until the middle of November, which is very late for us, and that's driven our revenue. We really need them to produce in order to be able to pay back.
Are they producing at full capacity right now?
I believe they are, but I'm not sure. I think they're pretty ramped up at this point. Yeah. So I think they've been able to get back up to full capacity, and we just, as much as I would not like any more precipitation, we'll keep praying for some precipitation, I guess. And then this is the expense side. Again, same theory with the insurance. We're not making the payment to the general fund is my projection. And same thing with employee benefits. Health and dental are killing us there. As for the water fund, revenue's been really strong in the water fund. Obviously, I'm projecting 6 months. We'll see how it goes. But revenue's been good there. Expenses are pretty close to budget. So this fund in total is performing well. One thing I did note on this slide is that, again, I'm presenting from original budget performance. There have been 2 resolutions from council this year to take money from fund balance to pay for things. So even though we're projecting this to add to the fund balance, those 2 resolutions are taking away. So just understanding that fund balance won't necessarily change by what I'm projecting. On the expenditure side, I feel like these are recurring themes. We did have some issues as I dug in by employee of how staff time is being allocated based compared to how I budgeted it. So I've talked to the department heads where I have these staff allocation issues to say when we budget next year, we have to really think about where people's time is going to be charged so that I can make sure that I budget appropriately.
The challenge with some of this is many employees are split between funds, so we're trying to make sure to get them accurately in the bucket that they're supposed to be in.
Like DPW and DMU, is that what?
So between water fund, sewer fund.
Oh, water and sewer, okay, all right, thank you.
Or landfill and
DPW.
And DPW.
So like we might have an employee, so for example, our cemetery maintenance employee, part of his time is in cemetery maintenance and part of his time is in streets. In these funds, there are several employees that are split between water and sewer. And so if I split them at a certain percentage, but the real life percentage is different, it throws off all the budgets. And I just want to make sure that how I budget matches with how they're going to use staff so that it comes out a little bit cleaner. Obviously, it's not a perfect science, so we'll just have to keep working on it. But as we budget more precise, then there's not as much room for error. One of the things that we discovered in our meetings is that funds get charged back from the landfill. So water and sewer gets charged back from the landfill for waste that they bring across the scale. That was not in Seth's original budget, which is why you'll see the overage there. So we have that noted to budget for next year. Debt service, employee benefits, I feel like I'm beating the same drum, so it's pretty much the same thing that we talked about in all of the other funds. Any other questions on water? Sewer, right now I'm projecting revenue to be low. You're all aware that there's been some issues and some lost revenue in the sewer fund. We had to stop accepting. I have not projected any lost revenue recoupment in this. So the revenue number could end up being better than what this number is. If there was one theme about this budget presentation that I had all the way through, was I was being very conservative.
We are tracking that lost revenue and are going to try to go after it.
Yeah.
So.
And hopefully it all comes in just like when we had the water billing issue last year and we were able to collect it all.
You're referring to the issue of Cuban milk ingredients?
Yes.
Yeah, so I've touched base with Mr. Jensen as well. He assures me that he is tracking all time materials, sludge handling, and that we are going to go after them. I will tell you right now, from where I'm sitting, they pay it or we turn it off. They can get their water source from somewhere else. They can send their sewage somewhere else. They reimburse us for what we've lost, or we're turning the spigot off. So that's my direction.
So hopefully this ends up in a way better performance, but I didn't want to, I can't even project what that number is going to be right now. So I'm kind of being conservative in this light. So hopefully better than we think. Sewer rents in the city are a little bit lower as well. That's the area I probably will spend some time with water sewer billing just to see. Water revenue is trending strong, so it seems to me that sewer revenue should be too. So I will spend some more time with them just to see if we can identify if there's any area that is a concern. Obviously, I've been out of work for a couple weeks, so I'm trying to. I haven't had the opportunity to talk to her yet. So once I get that opportunity, I will. But so like I said, that revenue projection, this is the one that I'm most concerned about because this is a little bit hard for me to project right now. On the expense side, recurring theme with insurance. Right now in both sewer budget lines, operating supplies have been low. That doesn't mean though, as we approach year end, that there won't be a large expenditure. Sometimes it's hard to predict some of that stuff, so we'll see, but I'm projecting that we will be under budget there. And then same thing with debt service and with employee benefits. Same kind of theme as all the other funds. Any other questions on sewer or anything else I talked about tonight?
Any questions? Councilor Overstreet.
So I want to go back to the crossing guards, and this might be a combined response. Mayor, I heard you talk the last couple of years about the cost of the city paying the cost of the crossing guards. So is the school district paying for any of it?
No.
So they're not paying for any of it. How did it become the city's responsibility to pay for a crossing guard?
Yeah, so my understanding is it's always been that way since the inception of the program. Ms. Haynes, myself, Ms. Leeson have had extensive conversations with the district, the new superintendent, members of the board. I equate this to what happened several years back with the SRO program. That was originally a federal grant. That grant ran out. The city of Auburn was paying the salaries of the SROs in the school district. School district is a completely different taxing entity. They should be paying that. And former city manager Jeff Dyer approached the superintendent at the time, Mr. Perazzolo, and he understood where we were coming from. He agreed. He went to his board. The only thing they asked is that we would phase it in over a period of time so that they could properly budget for it. And we thought that was a reasonable request. We really had the same request of the school district with crossing guards. We feel that it should be entirely absorbed by the school district. We were willing to be good partners because we work together on most things, and asked them to take half of it. Quite frankly, I feel they strung us along, and then after several meetings told us no, they weren't going to do it. Our option is to cancel the crossing guard program, which is not an option. If a young person gets hurt or worse, that's on us. But this is just another example, just like what's going on at the wastewater treatment plant with Cuba Milk Ingredients. I say it all the time, the city of Auburn is a punching bag. This is another example of it. I would encourage the public that's watching to consider this when they go to vote on the school budget this year. If you live in the city of Auburn, they want you to improve that school budget with that tax hike, despite the fact they're getting increased aid. I'd vote against it because they're not willing to take on and pay for a service that the only reason we provide is because the school district exists. And I don't mean to interrupt you, and I apologize. I want to go further. Casey Park, Falcon Park. The auditor stood here and told us what you're doing makes no financial sense whatsoever.
Correct.
Again, back to the good old days of when municipalities built things to build them, right? We're going to build a skate park. We're going to build a pool. Ice skating rink, a pool. We continue to subsidize that for the school district. So I would ask, continue to determine what that cost is. That's what the school district needs to pay per hour. That's it. We cannot continue to risk our workforce, the services that we are obligated to provide to the people of the city, to subsidize other entities. If they don't want to pay it, then they can buy it from us. It's for sale. Make us an offer. I'm tired of it. And I would ask that staff present that number to the district as soon as possible.
We will.
Because they're going to be planning their budget. Because that's what they always tell us. Well, we passed our budget, and then you come to us and tell us you want to increase it. We didn't budget for that. Same thing with Falcon Park. College is paying their fair share for their use. School district needs to pay their fair share. Again, if they don't want to, it's for sale. Throw us a number. If not, they can build one too. We have to take these hard lines. We have no choice. We have to advocate for the people of the city. We have to protect the taxpayers in the city. And yeah, that's where I'm at with this. I don't know if council has anything else to add on those two items.
Is this school administration hard line that they're taking to not help in funding these? Or has it just always been, or was Jeff Perazzolo the one that had agreed that, we'll phase it in? So so what I'm asking is it this current board and current school administration that just does not want to hear it, or we're talking about it and they're not receiving it?
Yeah, so I would say the current superintendent and board, we did meet with them. We explained our reasonings for them taking over the crossing guard program, at least half of it, while we allow them to budget for it. We were told that they don't feel that the crossing guard program contributes anything to the actual district, so they shouldn't have to pay for it. They've used the excuse that legally they can't. That's not true. We've debunked that. There are the municipalities that have passed that cost on to the districts. So
Mayor, not to throw their council under the bus, but we had an agreement between lawyers that on the law, that general municipal law does allow for school districts to contribute to crossing guard programs. as long as there's an increase in the number of guards. And that was the general framework of the agreement, I'll call it, if you recall. So I'll echo your sentiments on that, Mayor.
Thank
Can
you.
we bill them?
We could, I don't know if they're gonna pay it.
And then if they don't pay, take different recourse? And I have grandchildren that go to school, so, but I'm on the city tax roll, so I'm just wondering.
I'll defer to the comptroller on issues of billing, but I honestly, I can't think of a legal way by which we could bill.
And we will follow up with conversations with the superintendent on this.
Any other questions from council?
Just wanted to add a little, going through, when we put out the projections for the revenue, it's my own opinion, obviously, maybe we should be a little more conservative on what we put out, because if you just added up the numbers that we had the shortfall on this presentation, it was $4.2 million. We're going to use more money out of the fund balance, but we're still $3 million short all day long off of these projections, give or take. That's a huge hole. I mean, I don't know where the projections come from. Do they come from each department head says this is how much, or is it, who does that?
I did the projections and then sent them to each department head for review.
Right. It's just, I guess it comes back to, like the mayor said, it's going to be a tough budget regardless, and we don't want, I would rather say, hey, we're going to bring in this much this year from this certain revenue, and we bring in a little more, so it's a little buffer next year, than be $3 million, $4 million short.
And that really was also a recommendation from the auditors when they presented, was, be conservative in your revenue projections, be budget a little high in your expenditure projections, so that when you get to the end of the year, you're not facing this huge hole.
Yeah, just one last thing on like the Casey Park and Falcon Park and stuff like that. We can't take a loss. That's not doable. It's nice to be able to do things for the community, and you guys, obviously I wasn't here, but have done plenty over the years. But if it's, I don't know, $350 an hour for the ice, then you need to be getting at least that.
It's
or
about $400
Okay,
an
so
hour
we
for
can't
the
be
ice.
charging
I think it's probably higher than
$225,
that.
I remember many years ago didn't they have like a little panel that was running it for us per se? And they were calling around, there was teams coming from Albany and Buffalo, and those guys don't mind. They're gonna pay if you told them, and as an example, if you told them it's $600 an hour or whatever, these teams will come in and use the ice, it's happened. They actually did pretty well when they had that little panel. It's something we can look into also, but you can't just give it away and take it on the chin from the city, making taxpayers fund it.
Absolutely.
Councilor Cuddy?
Yes, I did have one. So can you go over parking? There was an estimate. Why was that so much lower than what was
I think
anticipated?
that the new parking enforcement program was difficult to get off the ground. I think that right now and Chief, you may be able to speak better to this, but the parking enforcement officer, we have one. He's spending a lot of time on maintenance on the kiosks. I could be not saying this right, so that's why I'm calling on you. So unfortunately, his amount of time, we'd send him to go, do a little bit of boot work. We send him to fix all the machines, I think, right? All right, thanks, that's good.
She's very accurate. Today alone, we had 3 kiosks down. One got ran over by a snowplow, and 2 of them, because of the temps, are not working. I think it's time, and along with Sergeant Bilbus, we've advised this, that the kiosks appear to be going in the wrong direction. We are seeing that some of them were not operable. The initial plan was to try to move the ones that aren't operating and move closer to the city. Park Place, they probably had 40 cars. Onondaga has 50 cars. We're bringing it home. You can see who's going to go to the front of the line. It's not going to be us because these are the people with the higher volume of cars that need to come 51. So it pushes us back a couple months there. Then we had to wait for training for Sergeant Gilbis and also parking enforcement Ullman to take the license plate reader course, which was just done this week. We are hoping to come springtime, once we have our staff, which was touched on back when we get fully staffed, close to, then start making them go out traffic enforcement on certain days. This is our Gilbis with that opera, maybe in lieu of a day of their shift on midnight, so they come in during the day, and they move to parking enforcement, and move to go, or something like that, that we used to do in the past. So we might be able to catch up sooner, once the weather kind of breaks here. We're still going to be behind the 8 ball around.
You're not going to make the projected amount.
And, you know, I want to give the clerk an opportunity to chime in because I know he's done a lot of research and had meetings and conversations with Pango. Do you want to chime in at all?
Well, we're in good position to, we're working with the Downtown Business Improvement District to promote the use of the Pango app and the alternatives that the Pango program offers, which is a text-to-pay program and a phone-to-pay program, which is available for people that don't use apps or don't have a smartphone. It's going to take education and really spreading the word, but the good news is we have been working quite a bit over the last several months with the bid, and the bid has been very helpful with it, laying the groundwork to try to educate everybody, but it's just more and more work that has to be done. We do have new information that's just gone out in the last couple of weeks with the bid, in which it's on our website as well, at the Pango page on the website, of these new components of the Pango program. And the one thing that we know, like 2025 Pango had a good year. It's really surprising to see, there was over 30,000 Pango sessions. People do use the app. You know, we're living in, you know, people are using apps to order their lunch, coming downtown, picking up their lunch. People do use the Pango app. And the revenue, I think total revenue for calendar year 2025 was, you know, $40,000 something dollars. So the good news is Pango does work. You know, it does do the job. And then a lot of the improvements that we've made with moving the kiosks into the parking garage, and these alternative programs for paying for parking in the parking garage has solved a lot of the issues that we were having in the parking garage, and I think that's working much better here, and that's all work that's just happened over the last few months. So I think we're in good position there. So, you know, it's just a matter of, you know, we gotta, you know, keep at it. Do we know that the Pango revenue that comes in, is that in the same budget line that you're putting there?
There's multiple budget lines for parking, so that would go in the on-street parking revenue.
It should be, right?
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause
Yep.
that number just seems a little low to me based on what I know Pango brought
I can
in.
check
just
with
wanna
Jen
make sure that it's
and
all
see.
going, like when he goes out and collects all the quarters out of the meters and they come in and get deposited, that should be going into the same account as Pango,
Yep.
I would think. Right, yeah, it should be, so.
One area I'd like to bring up again, I know it's a sore subject at times, is the warnings. We gave over 900 warnings in the last 3 months. That's probably.
So we're down to just one, right?
Yep.
So it started over at the beginning of the calendar
Right, yep.
year, right? So that's why we have a lot of warnings now, but that's it for the whole year.
For the year, yeah.
Okay.
For this month alone, I think it was still around 300, over 300. So you might want to consider not giving warnings or one warning for their whole lifespan of their life instead of once a year. I think you're
On the
losing revenue there.
kiosks, I did get a report from Sergeant Gilfus on the condition of some of the kiosks and you know, where the worst ones are, with the idea of, you know, should we get rid of some of them? I know in the parking garage and in some of our lots it works well, and we wanted to make sure, and Councilor Kent was a big advocate for this, making sure there were some options for some of our folks that, you know, don't use phones. So I think there's some value in keeping some of them. I appreciate the chief's position on it. It is difficult to keep them repaired and, you know, pay the charge for the internet connection, the paper, and all of that. So, so we have that report, and we can talk through whether we should, you know, take some out and replace with signage, with QR codes, that kind of thing. So we'll take a look at that.
Yeah, that would, what the chief was just saying, that it's almost like they're just taking advantage. I mean, how can you have 900 warnings in 3 months? That's insane. You're talking 10 a day. That's people just saying, well, I'm going to get a warning. It used to be 4, obviously you took it down to 1, but I personal, once again, I'm on board 200% with the chief's recommendation that maybe you should just get 1 warning permanently, and that's that. I mean, it's just, you're just giving a reason to go and not pay the meter. That's what it is.
I mean, excuse me for not knowing, I thought like it was, you would get the warning and then it renews every year?
Yeah, it's
Every
once a year.
once a
Yeah,
year.
I
We were
think-
doing 4 a year, and now
You
we're doing
know,
1 a year. Yeah.
I agree with Councilor Diego. I mean,
Yes.
you go to any city, you got paid a part. I didn't know it was every year. I thought it was like.
Well, I think that something that really puts it in perspective, and I don't know what slide it was, the electricity in the garage,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? If that garage was owned by a private entity, the debt that we have on it for repairing it and extending its life for another 15, 20 years, and the electricity, they'd be charging you probably about $3, $4 an hour to park it there. Because not only do they have to break even, they want to make a profit.
Right.
We're not even coming close to breaking even on this thing.
No.
I mean.
So I think
Yeah.
during the budget season, we're going to have to, I mean,
Yeah.
just the sheer increase in electricity alone.
Thank you.
All set with the chief?
All set.
Thank you, chief. I have a question on the tax collection component. Do we have any indication as to why that number is off from what it has been historically?
So I've done quite a bit of research on it. I haven't found one particular indicator. We do have a long, what I would consider a longer list of properties ready for foreclosure. I don't have a good, I've dug in a few times. I've talked to the city treasurer. I don't have a good understanding of why. It's concerning to me, and employees here have heard me say this, right? Like when I'm looking at the budget for the city, I'm looking at the budget to consider the city like my household and make it break even, right? But I'm also looking at it for our taxpayers to be able to afford to live here. And I'm also looking at it for our employees to be able to have a certain reasonable wage and benefit, right? So really, when you're looking at this budget, you have to kind of look at it from all perspectives. I worry about the ability of us to collect tax because this is what happens and our revenue goes down. We can't afford to take a hit like that again. As I develop the revenue budget for next year, that's one of the things that I'll work with the treasurer on, is to try to get a good understanding of where we think we're going to be.
So,
I was just going to say, you and I have talked about, and we've talked with Mary Beth about bringing a tax collection policy to the council for approval. So we are working on the research for that. The county has a policy that I think we're going to look at as a base to work from, and then we'll bring that.
yeah, and that's a good segue. Actually, I had some notes here that I wanted to bring up because it concerns me as well. You know, I've looked at the list of outstanding taxes, and I'm not discounting that there are people who are struggling. I mean, the cost of everything is up. We talked about health insurance. We talked about electricity. Like, the cost of everything is up, right? But if you look through that list, there's groups of people, there's groups of property owners in there. There's hardworking people who might be struggling. But there's also a bunch of LLCs in there, you know, one who proclaims to be an emperor or something. Another group of people, little father-son duo, who like to play the game of not paying their taxes, even though they're collecting rents from people, until it gets right up to that deadline, right? And I believe they're the bigger problem. I know we have a foreclosure policy that is written into the city charter. I don't want us to get to that point. And I have spoken with the manager a little bit. You know, I do believe we need a written, discussed on this floor, adopted by this council, tax collection and repayment policy. I know that there are a handful of agreements that we've voted on here, and we know that people are living up to those. We get regular reports on those. It's my understanding that there's approximately 30 verbal agreements out there, and that's problematic to me. It has to be unified. You know, it ensures taxes are collected the same way every time, regardless of who is involved, and eliminates any claims of favoritism. It demonstrates that the city is functioning under a clear and legislatively authorized framework, guided by best practice accounting standards. Property owners have clear expectations related to deadlines, penalties, interest, and enforcement. And standardization improves cash flow when we have to pay for things like bridge reconstruction, and provides accurate revenue forecasting and budgeting, which we just talked about here. You know, our policy for foreclosure is 2 years. Are we doing anything to reach out to folks who aren't paying before that to say, hey, we have a policy in place, maybe you fell on hard times, like, can we work together and get you on a path to being repaid? Because the farther behind somebody gets, the worse off they are. And it just be, you know, especially the single family property owner, that's problematic.
It is.
So I'm glad to hear that staff is working on that. Hopefully that can come to us soon. I would say that once it's voted on and adopted, obviously we have verbal agreements with folks. I don't know if we can go back and say you have to sign this now, but I think going forward, we really need to stick to that. Additionally, and from what I've seen tonight and conversations that I've had over the last couple months, I'd like us to start conversation about having a framework in place for a finance department. I'm not saying add positions, create a new department, but within the existing positions in this organization, create a centralized finance department. We need standardized policies for the payment of all bills, water, sewer, refuse, code enforcement, ice at Casey Park, turf at Falcon Park, fire department inspection fees. You know, so we know that municipal utilities is going to issue a bill to Cuba Milk Ingredients. What's the mechanism after that to make sure it gets paid? And I think that's what's lacking. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just identifying a problem that once we know it exists, it's our obligation to fix it and get better at it. We know that there's $9,000 in lift assist fees from Northbrook Heights because I've called them 3 times and they refuse to pay it. That needs to go to this finance department, and we need to take legal action against them because they generated those bills. So I want that conversation to start too. I want staff to contribute to that. I want their input on that, but I just wanted to be clear that this is the policy-making body in the city of Auburn. And I know some of these changes, some of these requests are not going to be taken kindly. There's going to be pushback. I get it. Nobody likes to be micromanaged. That's not my intent. My intent is we have got to fix the structural problems that we're seeing here. That's what we're sitting here. That's what the people put us here for, and that's our obligation. And if somebody has a problem with that, tell them to come see me. We're asking you to do this. So if anybody has a problem with it, you ask them to come see me.
We'll move forward and start working on it.
Anything else on the budget stuff?
No. Yeah, and centralizing is a perfect idea as far as I'm concerned as well. another word for it's consolidating, you know, bringing things together. And if it's, the big part about that is it has to, one, it's gonna serve a different purpose, so make sure everything's accountable, but it's also gonna save money. You can't centralize or consolidate services. In many years ago, without going into the detail of what happened, we did that, not we, the city and county, but, and I'm not saying, you know, you lay people off, whatever the case may be, but you don't consolidate a bunch of departments and then say, well, we'll take these 3 people and we don't need them because we're centralized now and we'll put them over someplace else. You're defeating the purpose. You're not saving anything by doing that. So that's, you know, whether people are going to agree with it or not, it's the reality. But when you look at just what we've seen tonight, and you guys have been here, so you know the budget way better than me, we have some extremely tough decisions that are going to need to be made in ASAP.
And I know that, you know, maybe you're looking for some direction from us related to where we are. We've got 6 months left. I don't think we can wait 6 months and then start taking corrective action. I think we need to take corrective action now. I think we need all department heads and staff across the organization to try and do their best to meet those revenue projections, whatever it takes. I know I look at that list of outstanding park tickets and I call people and say, hey, you're on this list.
I did too.
Yeah, they come and pay.
So
like, you know, and the funny thing is, like, there was somebody on that list that had $1,100 in parking tickets. And when that person got called and said, hey, your name's on this list, that person said, yeah, I probably have $1,000. They knew.
Mm-hmm.
They knew they had, and they kept parking and getting the ticket and throwing it away. So there is an opportunity to try to correct this, and we need everybody to work together to try to do this, and we cannot wait until July to do this.
I think that the most important point for me in this conversation is policy procedure. If we have clear policies and procedures for billing and collection, and we have a centralized staff that I can talk to about billing and collection, and we're all doing it the same way, it becomes much easier to bill and collect. And so that would be, you know, a priority in the process, and not to micromanage anybody or anything like that, but having those policies and procedures in place is going to be important.
Right, and if we did, we wouldn't have $600,000 worth of parking tickets out there. That's exactly it, because there's nothing in place to say, well, this person got this ticket, who's following up, who did we send them something? You know, everybody's got an excuse right now. Oh, I didn't get that ticket, I didn't, you know what I mean? But if there's no policy to enforce it, you're just doing it to do it at this point.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other business from the council? Councilor Cuddy.
Yes, I know that over the last couple of weeks, there's been the topic of the senior and disabled tax exemption brought up during public to be heard. And I know that there's been a lot of back and forth. The city manager has given projections if there was an increase in the, to bring it to the maximum. And I think that was helpful to get that information. A couple of things I want to say is that you know, some of the counties and municipalities that do go towards the maximum number are much bigger, have a bigger tax base than our area, and smaller counties like ours, Cortland, Madison, Oswego, Seneca, they're either similar to the threshold that we have, and or some are even lower. So, you know, I think it's important. I do want to thank the people for bringing attention to this. I also want to clarify that this information is readily available for people to take advantage of. But I think that it's important that people do remind people that these exemptions are available. So I think that that's good, that that the awareness is being made, but I really don't think an increase is going to be helpful to, given our current tax base and basically where we are. I mean, as I said, Onondaga and Monroe counties are, you know, they could go to the maximum because it's, you know, but Cayuga's in line with our current, threshold. It makes more sense, and other communities that are like us are there. If we were to go to the maximum allowed by state, that would be over 3% tax increase on non-exempt property owners. And as you know, based on what we saw tonight, what we're experiencing in affordability, it's going to put the burden on more people. So I do think that I'm glad we're offering this tax exemption. I'm glad that we are in line with communities that are around us. I just don't think we can afford to go to increase to the maximum. But I do encourage people to take advantage, to fill out the form. I know that the deadline is coming up. So I would say if you meet the exemption, the senior tax exemption and disabled tax exemption, please utilize it. I appreciate that the public is bringing that up. And, but I really don't think we can afford to go any higher. And I know that there are communities that are around us that are actually lower than us. So I just want to make sure that, you know, as one counselor, I think we're in line with other communities that are like us. That's what I wanted to say in response to what was brought up the last couple of weeks.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to add on that topic?
Yeah, just
Councilor Diego?
Yeah, to be clear, and it's exactly like Councilor Cuddy said, it's not going to bring in any more revenue. It's not going to bring any more taxes. It's just going to make other people pick up the difference is what it would be. It's the people that would get the exemption. Obviously, the levy's still going to be the same. It's just going to be distributing it out from other people. I like the program. I'm afraid that it's not going to be sustainable, even if we went one way. And obviously, looking at the budget, I'm just going to throw an idea out there. We're not getting any more AIM funding. We know that. And they're going to give you that temporary $500,000 or whatever. Even if we covered it for 1 year, what do we do next year? If we said, hey, let's do this, I don't know, is there an option maybe? I don't think we can get to the max by any means, looking at the numbers, but is there a halfway point in between what we're at and what the max is? I don't know.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, we're in the middle of a re-eval. Actually, we couldn't do this tonight if we all agreed on it because you need 2 weeks. The deadline's February 1st. You know, this isn't, I won't say it's an unfunded mandate by the state because they're not mandating we do it. It's an unfunded option by the state of New York because what they're saying is, yeah, go ahead and offer this property tax relief, but we're not going to increase your funding at all to try to cover that gap. And we're in the 16th year of no increase. So that's important to note. You know, there's some comments made that nobody here knows what it's like to live on $55,000 a year or less. And that's probably true right now. I live a very good life. I've worked very hard to establish a life and build a life for myself. I'm proud of that. But I'll say this. I have parents who are retired. I have a grandmother who's 95 who lives on a fixed income. When I was a kid, my father lost his job, and I know what government cheese tastes like. But when we make decisions up here, they have to be compromises that are good for the entire community, not just one segment of the community. If we could afford it tomorrow, I'd do it like that. But the reality of it is we're shifting that tax burden to the rest of the city of Auburn. And that wasn't said in the presentations, but that's what happens. We're going to shift that tax burden to the rest of the city. And that's not something, based on what we're seeing in tax collections that's probably not something the rest of the taxable properties in the city can afford. I think it's something we need to consider every year. If we get into a better spot, maybe it is something, and it should be done in conjunction with the county. My understanding is the county is not considering it
That's correct.
this year. It was mentioned that there are other counties that do more. Those are larger counties, you're correct. In this area, Portland, Madison, Oswego, Seneca, Ontario, we're higher than they are, or even. So I think we've struck that good balance, and you know, it's something that I think we should revisit in the future, for sure. Any other business from the council? I have one last thing. I know we've been here a long time. I don't know if everybody saw in the paper today the article about Cuga Centers. It's concerning to me. I'm sure it's concerning to everybody in this room. Based on that article, that organization has a very uncertain future. To me, it's concerning for several reasons. They provide much needed services in this city and county. That, you know, this is another example of the state advocating their responsibility for people in the state to not-for-profit organizations. If Cuga Centers leaves, I don't know who's going to fill that void. Additionally, it's going to be a loss of jobs. On top of that, they own a significant amount of property in the city. By quick search, they own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 parcels in the city of Auburn, one assessed at $2.8 million for a total $5.6 million, of which we collect no property taxes. If they close their doors, my concern is what are they going to do with this property? How long are they going to hold on to it? I don't want to be sitting here getting the Diocese of Rochester treatment like we're getting with Holy Family Church. I would ask, if it's okay with the city manager and okay with the council, that we draft a joint letter to the acting CEO of Cuga Centers asking for a meeting. I would ask that there's only one local board member left, the rest are throughout the state. I'd ask that we carbon copy that board member, James Leperfido. He lives here in town. Perhaps he can facilitate that conversation with Cuga Centers. But I want to get ahead of this. I don't want to wait until something bad happens. If they're not using any of these parcels now, I'm going to push for them to sell them, to get them back on the tax rolls. That this is part of what our problem is, right? So if it's okay with council, I'd like to take those steps to try to get ahead of this. Thank you. Any other business from the council? All right. Request for executive session?
No.
All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn? So moved. Councilor Cuddy, second by Councilor Diego.
Motion to adjourn 7:43, Councilor Diego.
Yes.
Councilor Wilson.
Yes.
Councilor Cuddy.
Yes.
Mayor Jennings.
Yes, we're adjourned.